Hello everyone, this is Albert Espinoza. This is week 3 of our MPA 510 History and Theory of Public Administration for Dr. Sundstrom's course at Cal Baptist University. This week's presentation will touch on this week's readings regarding theorists that range from the New Deal to mid-century. The two theorists I'll be touching on this week are Luther Gulick and Chester Bernard. And these two theorists in our readings really sparked an interest for me because the idea of PosCorp is something that I think Luther Gulick was almost there. He just needs some little tweaks to make it right. And Chester Bernard's theory about informal organizations and the relationship to formal organizations is something you find in today's culture, especially whether you're in the private or public sector, in regards to like maybe some of the behind the scenes discussions and meetings that may be occurring prior to making final decisions in a formal meeting setting. We'll start off with Luther Gulick and his theories of organization and what it should look like, and basically what he came up with was a structure for an organization which he called PosCorp. Within PosCorp, it includes planning, organizing, staffing, directing, coordinating, reporting, and budgeting. And to a certain extent, this is correct because this does create some sort of hierarchy and structure within any sort of private or public organization. But similar to Taylor and Weber, it is missing a little bit of a human component. And even within his writings, he talks about how superiors need to give orders to their subordinates, and there's one master. So there's still this hierarchy. This impersonal aspects of being a supervisor, which Gulick was almost there, but it was just missing some components, which is the human factor to his theory. Chester Bernard and informal organizations and the relationship to formal organizations really touched me because having this idea that you make these relationships ahead of time within your inner circle within the organization, and almost like a cooler talk to get to know people and strategize behind the scenes before you go into any sort of big meeting. And that's why I like Chester Bernard, where there needs to be prior contact and preliminary interaction. You need to know who's who within the organization so you can work together and accomplish what you need to do. Some strengths and weaknesses for these two theories are the strengths for Gulick's is, creating the structure and this organization is crucial in any sort of private or public setting. And the only negative is if you still keep that idea of, there's someone at the top and there's a supervisor, commanding people, not everyone may react to that. So there needs to be that balance and that human component to it to be that right supervisor. In regards to Chester Bernard's theory about informal organization, it's great because you do strategize ahead of time, you brainstorm, and you have a game plan before you meet with people before heading into that big meeting. However, it can spiral out of control and potentially lead to more of gossip if it's not done correctly. So, in this sense, that's something that needs to be controlled. This informal organization needs to be done correctly because otherwise it can lead into something that could turn negative. An example of Gulick's theory of organization and structure is the City of Rancho Cucamonga's organizational chart, which shows at the top the residents, city council, city manager, and below the city manager all the different directors within the city. And broken down into more detail on the left of that image is the engineering services department, which also has its own structure. So Gulick's theory of creating this formal structure makes sense, but again, it's missing that human factor component to it. On the top left corner, you see some pictures of a phone, a handshake, and a meeting. Going back to Chester Bernard and doing the behind the scenes of getting things done. That phone call sometimes before that pre-meeting is crucial to have that game plan. One example this week, I met with fire, community services, and public works to strategize about a new CNG station at the sports center. But the more we talked, we realized that maybe we should go electric because we keep seeing more electric vehicles than CNG vehicles out on the road and residents using that. So we kind of strategized together, worked on that, and we're actually going to present it together next week to the city manager because his idea was a CNG station, but we want to present to him an electric station instead. And without us doing this behind the scenes meeting to go to the site and kind of strategize together, this probably would not happen. And when we have a game plan with the different departments coming together, it'll probably make it a lot easier to sell our idea and thoughts to the city manager. I hope you enjoyed this week's presentation, and I can't wait to see some comments on the discussion board. You have a great one.